Good morning, folks. I am Andy Foerstner, and I've been supporting the Edge, SASE, and Wi-Fi portfolio for AT&T for about 10 years now. I was planning on coming out and banging out about 50 push-ups, but Nan beat me to it last night, so I'll keep the award of physical fitness with him. What I want to do is kind of take you through 4 things. Some of the evolution that we've seen from a networking perspective and how that's leading up to AI. Talk about what we've seen as AT&T from an SD-WAN and SASE perspective in the market. Tell you a little bit about what we've done in our portfolio that has led to some considerable success that we've had, and then talk about a little bit of what is after SASE, because that's a frequent question that we often get. So, you know, to go back in time here just a little bit, and I know you're looking at this and you're saying 1990, wow, phones were still attached to the wall, so we're really going to go that far back in time. Well, it helps to kind of understand where we are right now and where we're headed, but we got to kind of understand a little bit of where we've been. So things back then were different, right? We did have our phones attached to the wall. I had a flip phone, which I still, for some reason, love. We have a lot of ways that we configured networks that was manual, which meant that we had to take really expensive resources that were CCIEs and ship them around the country because they had the expertise to do the command line interface, to be able to bring up the networks and make it talk with all the other nodes in that network. The data plane and the control plane were one. It took us hours, sometimes days, to recover issues with those networks. And we were dealing with kilobits. And AOL was sending us CDs to get online in our mailboxes every single day. Then you fast forward a little bit, and all of a sudden things started to get a little bit more intelligent, but not fully intelligent. So we had MPLS, so we now had ability to treat traffic with a class of service and a quality of service that gave us prioritization for applications going across that network, but it was still pretty complex. We had an expansion in the control plane, so if I had an IP network and I had an MPLS network, I had different control planes that I needed to operate within, so there was a significant amount of complexity that we had to deal with. Our mean time to repair issues did improve, but it certainly wasn't where enterprises needed it to be able to overcome the persistent challenges and threats that they were consistently facing. So then we started to move into this area of an intelligent network, which we're kind of coming out of right now and evolving a little bit more through. From an AT&T perspective, we put forth a lot of effort to create a disaggregated network operating system that originally started back in 2014, 2015 with what we called ECOMP, or our Enhanced Control, Orchestration, Management, and Policy Platform. And what that was basically about 8.5 million lines of code that AT&T had written. And we took that code and we did something that we're not very well known for doing. We gave it away. And we gave it to the OpenO Foundation, which is part of the Linux Foundation. They had 4.5 million lines of code. And they brought all that together, and that's what became ONAP, or the Open Network Automation Platform, which is kind of the brains that helps run the AT&T core network. So that, for AT&T, was a quick way for us to lean more into microservices that run our network, move away from bespoke technology from some of the large vendors that were out there, and give us a lot more control to be able to create an intelligent network by which we would use to run intelligent networks for our customers on top of. We had the rise of SD-WAN, where people moved away from legacy routers. We have the integration of security, where SASE started to rise. And we had mean time to repair that went down considerably because we had orchestration that was abstracted from the control plane in a way that it had not previously been done before. Now, if you look at kind of where we're at right now, which is a unique point in time, I love all the cameras going up, taking a picture of these slides. I think you're all going to get them. But now we're in this autonomous era, right? We've all been through a lot of these sessions. There's a lot of the same buzzwords that are being used in all of these sessions, which is we're talking about cognitive networks, self-healing networks, the ability to diagnose and repair issues without the intervention of a human. And another interesting data point is if you kind of look back towards autonomous and intelligent networking, there was actually a white paper that was written and a recommendation about adopting a knowledge plane back in 2003 by some really smart people at MIT. And if you go back and look at that, all the things that we're talking about now, 22 years later, are a lot of the things that were referenced in that white paper 22 years ago. So it's pretty unique that we're talking about autonomous networks. The technology has really caught up with where we've wanted to take things for a long time, but the ideas have been out there and they've been pretty sound. And then obviously, if you look at the bottom of the slide, it's just kind of interesting that we've gone from kilobits to megabits to gigabits to terabits, and obviously there's been a lot of conversation around 400 gig networks, going to 800 gig, going to 1.6, 3.2. We're not gonna stop until we are teleporting people. So if we kind of go through a little bit of what some of these insights are. So we've been doing at AT&T SD-WAN and SASE for about 10 years. We've had some really good success with it, a really great year. We've had over 10 analyst awards, a lot of top right on feedback from similar analysts. And I wanted to share just kind of some insights of some things that might seem really obvious to some of you, but maybe some of this are things that you haven't heard before. So we've had some stabilization in the market. A lot of acquisitions have taken place with SD-WAN providers that have bought security providers that have bought SD-WAN capabilities. And really the key is the integration of those different technologies, and we're starting to see some of the benefits of that with some of the products that are coming out to market and some of the great partnerships that we have, Palo Alto being one of those, which Suraj was obviously just on stage. The next one is kind of a little bit of a transport perspective. Convergence and diversity. It seems a little bit of an oxymoron, but if you think about where convergence happens, it happens at the edge of the network. And what we're seeing from a transport perspective is a lot of companies, a lot of customers based on site types and requirements are relying more and more on wireless connectivity. So we see a lot of interest in regards to customers that want to take advantage of the fiber assets that we provide, but also want to increasingly take advantage of the wireless capabilities that we have. The next one is kind of just SASE. I used to have a lot of customers that would say, well, all those pillars that have been nicely defined by Mplify in MEF 117 and 118, I have all of those, but they're not all from one person. Do I not have SASE? From my perspective, I think you do have SASE. You have the SASE framework in place that's effectively supporting your business. So from a market perspective, we do still see at this moment predominantly a multi-vendor SASE approach, or best of breed as it's often referred to, where somebody has an SD-WAN provider that fulfills the needs of their SD-WAN requirements, and we see a different SSE provider providing their security functionality. However, in mid-markets especially, I'll talk about this a little bit more on another slide here, we do see a lot of convergence taking place, and it starts to make sense, right? Your larger enterprises, your networking team is separate than your security team. They've made separate decisions on what technology makes the most sense for them. They're trying to live out investments that they've previously made. I do think, and we are starting to see this a little bit more on the enterprise side of things, that single vendor SASE will start to take off a little bit more. The next is, moving on to a little bit of kind of the technology evolution, the importance of the network edge. The network does not work without it. If you think about AT&T, some of our other peers, some of which are here, why do we have stores and what do we sell in them? We sell these things. Why do we sell them? It's because it enables the use of our network. So the edge of the network really becomes important to try and translate the customer's needs, the application performance that they require, and make sure that that gets the appropriate prioritization over a network. But the edge of the network is extremely important. Edge compute. This has been a technology looking for an effective use case for the better part of a decade. I think we're finally there. The bespoke use cases that have popped up previously haven't really worked out, so there hasn't been mass adoption associated with it. There's been many people on the stage. I don't need to rehash the things that they have all said, but I think they're all accurate. Local inferencing, SLMs, all of those new use cases associated with where the enterprise is headed for in the future with the platformization of everything. Edge compute is going to be a thing. I'm not saying it's going to be by next year, but it is on the radar, and it will be an increasingly important part of customers' networks. The next is observability and digital experience management. The conversations we used to have with customers were primarily around, how is my network performing? Are my flows being optimized in the appropriate way? But where things have really changed is that customers are more focused on what that end user experience really is and how that network is optimizing that specific user, so that if Tammy, who's user number 43 on a Teams call, is experiencing issues, that Tammy is getting the appropriate remediation techniques implemented into her flows so that she gets an optimized experience. So things have changed. The technology that some of our partners offer has changed to be able to support that. And from a marketing perspective, we see a lot of customers that are looking for us to have granular solutions to help optimize not just those applications, but the end users that are taking advantage of them. The next is security and access, right? Zero trust by default. It's everywhere. VPNs are going away. Least privilege is the norm. So pretty obvious on that one. The rise of managed SASE. There was a statement on the previous panel before Suraj that had a reference in regards to what we need to do as service providers to make sure that we're meeting the requirements and needs of our customer base. We are doing that with modular ways that we've kind of put together managed services to be able to support those customers. And from a management perspective, flexibility is key from an offer perspective because the whole key is to meet customers where they are and meet those demands to evolve their business as they define it versus how we do as their partner or managed services company. Adaptive policy enforcement, everything's continuing to change. The network posture needs to be able to change with it. So nothing is ever set it and forget it and never will be again. This is where we need to make sure that we are, again, keeping the customer at the center of things. And then AI, what presentation is worth watching these days that doesn't have anything about AI, but it's everywhere, right? We're using it within the core of our network to be able to make sure that we're establishing and maintaining the best network in the world. We're using it with our customers in specific ways for their networks to make sure that we're optimizing their specific use cases. So it's going to be prevalent, and as we all know, it's not going away, even though we know that 95%, or studies say that 95% of efforts around AI fail right now. I think that we'll see a quick shift in that as we kind of all take off our training wheels and learn to ride this bike together. Natural language and business intent overlays. It used to be, CCIEs, like I said before. Then it was a little bit easier in orchestration from the SD-WAN providers, be able to administer business policies. But in the future, we're going to be able to speak to AI and tell it the outcomes that we're looking for the network to deliver, and it will automatically configure on our behalf to be able to deliver those outcomes. And then embedded AI networking assistance. Every one of the partners that we have from an offer perspective has these that are built into their networks. We are taking advantage of those, leaning into them as best we can, and working with our vendors and partners to be able to optimize those as best as possible. So we're providing them a significant amount of feedback, as AT&T has always historically done in regards to networking technologies that have been out there. So a little bit about how we've been kind of delivering this and what's kind of led us to what we hope to maintain, which is our leadership position in this space. But from an offer perspective, keeping the customer at the center of what we deliver means that we need to have the right tool for the job. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can't look at SD-WAN or intelligent networking as a monolith. Every one of the partners that we have does things a little bit differently. On the SD-WAN side of things, we have certain SD-WAN offers that are more application performance-based. We have others that are probe-based. We have others that use packets. Each one of those has a different characteristic and profile in the way that it treats applications. And our goal is to work with the customer and align their use cases and success criteria around a technology that works best for them. So having a broad portfolio helps us there. From a security perspective, again, single vendor and multi-vendor. You got to have multiple different options because you got to meet the customer where they are. We do have those within our portfolio. We will establish, manage, and maintain tunnels from SD-WAN edges to wherever a customer wants those tunnels to go. That's our responsibility as their partner, even if that is not with AT&T. But that is becoming increasingly more of an AT&T partnership with them on the security front. And then finally, intelligent operations. We're not the youngest company. We've got some older applications. We've been able to use AI in some really creative ways that allows us to put a veneer over some legacy applications that you wish you could get rid of, but sometimes you just can't. And that AI allows us to take the intelligence from those legacy applications, intelligently correlate those, and provide optimal uptime for customers. That's deeply embedded and integrated with the AT&T network. So that's a unique way that AT&T is providing AI, and this will continue to evolve as we try and meet the demands of our customer base. And then one final thing here is, because we get asked this all the time, well, what comes after SASE? Well, from an AT&T perspective, we have a really big network.
We have over 800 petabytes a day that goes across it. We invest a lot of money in it. We spent $124 billion from 2020 to 2024. We're going to spend $25 billion this year. We just spent another $5.75 billion for Lumen's mass fiber assets. We just spent $23 billion to buy a whole bunch more spectrum. We're going to continue to grow our network. But as we do that, that allows us to have some unique insights that not many other people have. So we get to see malicious intent and threats on our network in a different way than anybody else does. So that allows us to take advantage of the way in which we've built the network, the insights that we see, and the things that we use to protect ourselves, we want to use to protect our customers. So we want to be able to take advantage of that threat intelligence across all AT&T transport, which gives us a differentiation in why you should want to have circuits from AT&T. So, man, I hit it right on the number. So with all that being said, this evolution towards a secure, intelligent network is a journey that we're all going to be on. AI will continue to be infused within it. As carriers, us, as well as I'm sure some of our other colleagues that are in the room, are going to try and find unique and different ways that we can take advantage of the investments we're making to provide differentiation, to continue to evolve this space, to be able to meet the demands of all different sizes of business. Thank you very much for your time.